Good day, everybody. And as always, every week we bring you a show with thought leaders, CEOs, business people, and different experts in the world of Web3, of marketing, of business. And today, with me, I have Maria. Okay, I hope I don't butcher it. Maria Salcedo?
Yes, Maria Salcedo, yes.
Yeah. And today we're going to be talking about UI and UX design. And I wanted to make this episode a little bit more engaging, a bit more involved. So, probably a bit more like a seminar or a lecture, but we'll see how it goes. Um, as we're going to talk about the importance of proper UI UX design, and especially for Web3 projects. And as I understand, Maria has brought some material which is very Web3 involved, so we'll see how it goes. But first, Maria, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Why are you involved in Web3, and what is it that you do?
Sure. So thanks for having me here, Ivan. And yes, actually, I started working in design about 8 years ago as a freelancer, but then I decided to move to founding my own agency, and that's what I'm doing right now. And we work with Web3 businesses to improve their brand awareness, build their websites, and make some graphics. And we also do a bit of UX design. So that's our topic for today. About Web3, I think I knew about Web3 or Bitcoin in 2018, and I even assisted to a couple of events, but I wasn't working in the space. I started working in the space in late 2020, and I really love it. So it's the perfect match for innovation and creativity at the same time. So yeah.
Hmm. And why is proper UI UX design important, especially for Web3? Your opinion?
Sure. So the thing is that is the mindset of the users because just starting for the wallets, for example, when you go to access an application, you need to connect a wallet. And the wallet process of connecting and everything is a new mindset for the users because they are used to just put their username, their password, and if they lose their password, it doesn't matter because they have their email and they, oh yeah, I forgot my password, and they receive their password again or they can change it and there is no problem. But with wallets, everything is different because now it's their responsibility to keep their passphrase, in this case, in the case of blockchain, to keep their passphrase safe. And you can give that passphrase to anyone because that's the security of your wallet. And your wallet also have your assets, and the assets can be your NFTs, but it can be cryptocurrency. So we're talking about money too. So we are talking about security. And when it comes to UX, the purpose of UX is changing the variables of an application. It can be visual variables or technological, but changing the variables to reach or make the user feel a specific feeling. For example, it can be a positive one or it can be a challenging one for example, for a video game. So we change those variables for the user, and now the user can do their task more easily and with more trust. So it also helps with trust. And you know that in Web3, we are talking about community and people, and you need trust for building a business. So yep.
That's you know that has nothing to do with this podcast or like what we're gonna talk about. But you maybe remember, like some time ago, I mentioned that I like planning on doing like workshops right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the one which I am planning to do on Web3 marketing. Uh, Actually, depending when this podcast goes in, like the workshop might be out. But the point is, one of the like ideas I go into there, which I'm eagerly awaiting many people to disagree with me, is my hypothesis that trust doesn't matter in Web3. But I go into like from the sense of like mass adoption and actually like from like marketing point of view. From design point of view, like that's not what I'm saying. And again, as you talk with us about like the design of user interfaces and like how it all works, we'll see how it actually looks through. And another like point which I wanted to ask you is, I guess it's more general design. It's not really like Web3, but can you talk to us a little bit about like the color theory and the importance of using colors and what we usually use them for and how to use them more effectively? So say people at home listening right now and when they're like doing their design or thinking about like the design of colors even for their brands, like what should they look, what should they think about when they like pick
Sure,
colors to put into it? Yeah.
sure. So, for example, colors have meaning. It has different meanings between cultures, right? But people usually use, for example, when we talk about food brands, they usually use red because red has a feeling with like food or happiness and stuff. And for example, McDonald's use it because that's the meaning of red. But it also means like danger, for example, on a stop sign, and green for nature and everything. So yes, colors have meaning and they also change. But there are other things in color theory. For example, there's a rule that we call the 60-30-10 rule. 60% is like the main color or your principal color, right? The 30% is like your secondary color. You can, for example, use uh, white and blue or blue and white. And the third one, the 10% that is at the end, is for enhancing specific things. So, for example, you can do a background with blue, and then the secondary color can be white. And for enhancement, just enhancement, yellow. But if you use this rule, everything will be amazing in terms of color. But there's like a little tip that you have to take in mind, that contrast is everything, because with contrast, the match between brightness and darkness, um, this is what really makes things more readable. For example, when you're using typography, um, you can see that there are two objects because one of them are lighter than the other or darker than the other. So those are like the main rules of color. So if you keep those three things in mind, the meaning of the colors, the contrast, and the 60, 30, and 10 rule, uh, you match colors and you're like a master of colors. Of course, in the practice, but yes, those are the main rules.
How important are the meaning of colors actually? Like I get what you said about food brands, like you know McDonald's uses red, KFC uses red as well, but like warm colors like yellow, right, and orange. Burger King uses like a bit of blue as well, but like um, but
Sure.
how important is the actual like you know meaning which you associate it with? For example, I was working with a client of mine a couple of months ago, right? And they're a medical consulting company in Spain, actually. And their color design was mostly like red plus accent, as you said, and like white backgrounds. And it was chosen to be red because of its like, mm, because it's like Spain and it's warm and it's like has the connotations to the coast and the flag, the Spanish flag. But on the other hand, red really has nothing to do with like blue, and like we chose like a secondary color to add to it to be green, which is more like has to do with like not even like medical because medical would probably be some cold colors, but we chose to go with green, so it's like more vitality, life, like you know trees. But from your point of view, how important are those ideas, because they're not like written anywhere on like a website or design or
Exactly.
brand. Like, oh, hey, this green and this means this is a company which gives you vitality. And because everybody has different like associations, how really is important this fact that you're like ascribing certain meanings to certain colors, for example?
Okay, so it depends on the project, but from my point of view, that's just my point of view. I think 30%, and if you use photography, then it goes to 50%, because when you use photography, if you choose warm colors or cold colors, it's like a wall difference. For example, in photography, but on videos, um, when mm, Hollywood is pictured in Mexico, they usually have a yellow filter to make it like more warm, or like sometimes it's like to feel it more poor, that Mexico is is
Mm.
more poor. But yes, I mean, that's the meaning. But it matches when it's photography or video. But when it's color alone, for example, on typography, and you just have like a square or circle or something like that, I think it's just 30%, because one part is, yes, we need to match the meanings and with colors and everything, but the other part goes for differentiation, because if every food brand is red, then how can they differentiate themselves? So it's the same thing. For example, there's a trend of technology brands being blue, uh, but not every brand has to be blue, because if you find a technology brand that is red, for example, that's a differentiation from other brands. So when you pick the colors, you have to think, yes, on the meaning, but also to differentiate yourself from other brands, at least in terms of branding, okay, or logo design, for example. But yes, I think it's just 30%, and with photography, it's higher, really higher. So yeah.
You mentioned tech companies, like Web3 companies. They're all kind of like bluish, purplish, kind of pinkish, some like neon light accents, and also something I found, which I might be wrong, but this is my opinion. But like a lot of Web3 companies and Web3 like agency companies, even which are supposedly big, have very poor design. When you go to their website, like they don't really, I don't know, put any like much effort into this aspect of it. They just go for like those associations of the metaverse, the like techno, like cyber feelings. But like that's what they go to. But like they don't really, I think, do a good job.
I think like 80% of Web3 brands are purple for some reason, or black and gray. I don't know why, but yeah. Oh yes, purple is technology. Let's go, and that's it. But uh, you're saying something that it's true, that a lot of brands don't care about design, but I think it's because web right now Web3 founders are focusing a lot on technology, but technology isn't everything. I mean, you can just differentiate yourself because, oh yes, we have this new technology called blockchain or something like that, because at the end of the day, your users are not just Web3 users. Your users are from Web2 too, and your uh, competition aren't just Web3 brands. Your competition are also Web2 brands that can have better design, better UX design than yours. So they are not um, investing too much into usability, but I understand why, because some of them are looking for funding, and maybe they don't have a lot of money to start like enhancing or improving these things. But if you want to be a big brand, or uh, along the way that you are doing the evolution, you need to take care of these things, because maybe you have a really amazing product, but if people don't know how to use it, there's a problem and they won't use it. And if users don't use it, then you don't have clients, and that's the end, right? So it's the same thing for Web3. I have seen a lot of amazing tools, but with poor usability. And I think it goes for awareness too. So, yep.
Yeah, that's very true what you're saying. And uh, one thing which I have a big problem with, and like I'm not a professional designer, but obviously I use certain designing tools, right? I use Canva, like probably everybody does in some of their work when you're creating some piece of content. Why? Because it's like easy, it's fast, it's cheap because I don't have to always like hire somebody or like ask anybody to do. Uh, oh, and mostly like I want to talk about Canva because like with other tools, like if you use Adobe anything, you actually need to have your own assets. They don't really have much of their own asset library unless you're talking about like stock footage, right? But Canva has a huge asset library of stock footage as well, but also like different pictures, cartoons, which you can use. And if you sit long enough on the internet, LinkedIn, Instagram is also like really bad at it. You're gonna start noticing the same designs, and especially with the metaverse and Web3 projects, which we're talking today about, the design assets for Canva is very limited, and they're all the same like things they take from like stock. And then like I went to another site of a company who wanted to work with me, and like that's what I'm saying. They are supposedly a big company. They refer to themselves as like one of the largest like service companies in Web3. But I'm looking at their website, and it's like it's very basic. I would say it's even like Web1 sort of looking website. And then you see all those like stock similar designs which I've seen 10,000 times, and I psychologically cannot take them seriously. I don't know why, because it's like, okay, this looks like it looks like I've made it. Like, and I'm not a designer, so like I could have made this. And like or like a child made it, but it doesn't seem that like a company who says we are professional, we are the best, it just doesn't suit the image you're trying to present yourself as, and there's this disconnect which makes it really hard to take
Yeah,
the.
I mean, those are first impressions, right? And first impressions matter in terms of web design, and also, for example, with profile optimization on LinkedIn or other social media. So it's the same for everything, and it shows like, oh yes, they are not investing in this, and why aren't they investing in this? Because this is important, right? So yeah, I totally get it. So, and for stock pictures, it's interesting because yes, if you're using Canva, you have like, okay, those are this is the library and that's it. But when you go to other stock libraries, uh, you have like, there's a chart that tells you if it is used a lot or not. And from that you can do the decision if, oh yes, I will take this picture because there's not a lot of usage of it or not. But on Canva you can decide that. uh, I understand that people use Canva because it's easier and it's a simple way for doing designs like every day, and you have the library if you go to the premium membership. uh, but when you're doing like professional design, uh, beyond, you have to take look into other libraries. And the same goes with mockups, because I seen a trend on the design portfolios of other designers, and they use the same mockups every day. Like it's the same mockup I see from one designer and another designer, and there are a lot of a big library of mockups out there, but they are not using it. And of course you have to invest money on it, but it's part of the game, so at certain point you have to do it, or take your own pictures, of course.
No, yeah, definitely. But depending on the level of design you want to make, it can get like pricier and pricier, right? If you're not taking stock, if you're actually having a designer do the pictures for you, like especially there's this element which I really like, a website element which I really like on Monday, CRM system website, which kind of tells a story. It doesn't tell a story, but it shows visually the steps of using the application, right? And I wanted to implement something similar to my website, but creating this animation story-wise, you can't really do it from stock photos, and it's really like, and I haven't yet. Like I have like a very basic version of it. I will be improving upon it, but you can't do it from stock. That's something you need to do custom completely, and you have to do it custom. Of like again, like I'm a marketer, but me in this sense, like planning those stages and having the designer like draw those like custom figurines and assets all out and like create this intersection. And that's where like why people use Canva, but people overuse Canva.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true. And I have a funny story about it because I think last month a pest control business uh, talked to me and they needed a picture of a rat in a box. And of course, you won't found a rat in a black box in a stock picture or in a stock library. So I had to do it custom, but I also used AI to help uh, to make it faster because with AI I had like the sketch of the picture, and then I decided to design uh, the picture itself. So AI isn't the solution yet, but it's a great tool for improving the entire design process. So, for example, in that case, uh, yes, it's an improvement, but you can use AI just for, oh yes, I need this better and I will do it with artificial intelligence because it's not perfect yet, so people will notice that. But yes, it's an interesting story because you can find that types of pictures in stock library. So yeah,
so you don't use AI a lot.
no, yeah, I like to use AI to boost the efficiency of the design process, but it depends on the project. Sometimes you can like um, perfect the prompt and make a picture like a photography looking picture, but for certain things like vectors you have to do it manually. And I know that, for example, with Adobe Firefly, you can do vectors, but at the end of the day you have to do some retouch manually. But yes, it boosts efficiency, so I like it.
Have you used Adobe Firefly yet?
Yes, yes, I use it for that specific project. Firefly, yeah.
Okay. How about Midjourney and Stable Diffusion?
I haven't used a stable diffusion yet. I have to try it, but yes, I have used Midjourney.
Mhm. And thoughts, opinions on it from design perspective. Obviously you can like generate a lot and it's going to be a fun picture to post online, but like from the design perspective, is it there yet? Is it useful at all?
Yes, I think Midjourney is useful, but you need to know how to do the prompts because if you do like a generic prompt to write the generic prompt, it's like the same style for the pictures, for all the pictures. But if you know how to write the prompts, then you can get interesting pictures, specifically in photography style. It's amazing. It's amazing for that. So I like Midjourney. I need to try a stable diffusion. And Adobe Firefly is still on beta, but it's glad that they are working in terms of vectors because, at least as I know, there are a lot of artificial intelligence projects that are working with vectors, with SVG pictures. So that's a nice one for Adobe, I think.
Have you used Runway ML?
No.
Uh, just my opinion on especially like video editors of AI, not there yet. Like
Video editors, not. Okay.
it's cool to like play around with, and the novelty of it being AI generated is cool. But for proper work, like I have no reason even to touch them at the moment. There's nothing. from like
I
creating really substantial work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for video editing, like you said, but for picture generation, I think some of them are not there yet, but at least they can improve the design process for ideas or just for using them as references. So I think that's good. But or maybe even colors, because for example on Midjourney you get these nice colors on the pictures that are great. But as you said, for final picks, some of them are not there yet. So yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, yeah, as you say, like the brainstorming aspect of like generating ideas, seeing color schemes easily. How do you look like in the
Yeah,
final? This can be like really good one, but for the final one, not yet, and especially with like again, the video is a big part, like because I tried to play with them and like I tried to use Synthesia, like you can if you put a lot of hours and effort, if you put so much hours and effort into it that it's not even kind of worth it, create something really cool out of it. But overall it's just not there yet. It looks kind of the same as you mentioned with Mid Journey, which is I think like okay, so like last month everybody had the same avatar, like well like the same style of avatar, come on, like, and you lose uniqueness, any brand uniqueness when you have something like that.
yeah. And for video editing, I know that Adobe is doing something with their video tools because they are integrated Firefly with video. But I haven't checked, but I think it's not available yet, right?
Yeah,
And
it's in beta or for like closed.
yeah, exactly. And they launched the trailer, but you can do whatever in a trailer. It's not like the final product. We need to test it and see how it works. Because with Firefly in Photoshop, for example, the trailer is amazing, but when you work with the with it on Photoshop, then you have to work with a lot of rules because if you don't do that, just start getting pixelated pictures. So it's not just like the trailer. You have to try the tool. Yeah.
Well, Maria, how about we see what you actually brought us and you walk us through your design process for Web3 projects and as I believe wallets mostly.
Sure, sure. Maybe I can start sharing my screen.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, does it work? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this is a story I always try to tell when I'm talking about UX in Web3, and it's about like when I was working with trading back in 2018, and I wanted to do a transaction from a chain to another chain. And you know that when you do that, there is no interoperability, and you need to use a bridge for that because if you don't use a bridge, you lose your assets or your tokens. So, for example, if you want to uh, do a transaction from Near protocol to Ethereum, you use the Rainbow Bridge. That's how it's called, the application, the bridge, the Rainbow Bridge. But if you don't do it, you lose your assets. So here's the thing: when at that time, back then, Binance didn't have a pop up like how it is right now, that says, "Oh yes, you're trying to do a transaction from chain A to chain B," and I lost my assets. So I don't remember how many cryptocurrency back I had back then, but I lose my assets. And right now, they improved the system, and now they have a reminder. For the safety of your phones, please confirm again that the network you wish to use is Binance Smart Chain, for example, in this case. So, and that's telling the user how the system works because the user doesn't know that if they send a transaction, if they do a transaction from different chains, they will lose their assets. They don't know that. And they don't need to know that because we need to make Web3 as easier as possible. To get that, like when we use Wi Fi. We know that we need a name and that we need a password to join the network, and that's it. We don't know how many protocols or telecommunication protocols are working back there uh, to give us the internet, right? It's the same thing. So the other thing that they also added is this. So wallet, when you place a wallet address, uh, it automatically match the corresponding network. So it's like, okay, here's the network. You can still change the network, but if you change the network, it will show you the pop-up. Or are you do you really want to move these assets to the other chain? Remember, blah blah blah. It's the same thing. So that's a that's good for Binance, right? But I have seen other trading applications that don't use this, and that's a problem because the user lose their assets and they lose trust, not just on the brand but also on Web3, because now for them it's like, oh, now Web3 is this difficult thing that I need to learn a lot of stuff to work on it, and that's a problem, right? At least for mass adoption. And as we said before, the the thing is for a mindset, because we are used to log in with username and password and do the registration. And if we lose the password, then we can uh, retrieve it again from an email. But now we're talking about wallet applications. You have one wallet application or more, right? And in that wallet application, you can have several wallets too. For example, on MetaMask, you can have several wallets, and each wallet has a passphrase or a private key, and you have to store that private key. So that's a change on the mindset, and it's difficult because users are used to what they have on Web2. So it's a change in this case in their life, because you are changing the way you are accessing to applications. So it's the same thing. For example, I saw a study, a UX study, and they did it on Lisk wallet back in, I think, 2018 too. So this was the process for creating a new wallet. And the first thing the user did was like, oh, yes, you see these white rectangles? They thought they were buttons and they were clicking that. Of course, they weren't buttons. You just have to write the entire passphrase. And they even added this here that, like the paper wallet, uh, where you can print your passphrase with a PDF. But they didn't read it because most of users like don't read the entire thing, the entire screen. And even if you put instructions, they won't read it. And part of these instructions were, oh yes, you have to write them because you have to, or to memorize them. And that's just for creating a wallet. And I remember that this specific user have to try the whole process like 3 times till he actually finished having a wallet and with their private key and everything. So yes, that can be frustrating for some of the users.
Okay.
So the problem of wallets is that people don't store their private keys. Uh, you can have different wallets for different chains, and there is confusion in the onboarding process. And one of the ways to solve this is with ERC 4237. So it's a use in a smart contract, and you remove the need uh, at all for users to also have their private account. So you don't use a private key or a public key. I mean, you still are using it, but you don't see it. So it's the same thing, but you're using a smart contract for that. And one of the solutions I see that they are implementing this is Thirst Web Wallet SDK solution, because they did like a button, like a universal button where you connect your wallet and you can continue as a guest. And if you continue as a guest, you are starting like the process with the ERC 4337. And it can, I know that they have a lot of integration with different wallet providers, and they also have like transaction batching and recordable wallets and thin wallets. So that's an improvement from UX, and that's not an improvement just in terms of visual design, because sometimes people think that UX is just about visuals, but not. This is a solution from a technological perspective, because it's a smart contract. So it's an improvement in the technology to bring a solution into for the users, right? That's for the wallets. And another point for the wallets is like you always need to show the user what is happening on the system. The user needs to know what is happening. So, for example, these three screenshots that I'm showing right now for the audience that it's on the podcast, uh, they show different pending transactions, and some of them use colors, and some of them doesn't. And the three of them are from Coinbase. I think that they updated it, so right now Coinbase doesn't have any of these ones, but they change it with color because uh, when you have a pending transaction, you have to wait for the confirmations, right? Because you have to wait. Sometimes people think that, oh, my transaction is not processing, but it's not that. It's just that they have to wait, and that's it. So when you bring color to the user interface, it brings attention to that specific part of the screen, and now you know that you have a pending transaction. So that's another way to improve the UX, showing the user what is happening. It's even better if you have an additional information. For example, if you show, oh yes, your deposit arrival is at 12 confirmations. For the withdrawing, you need 30 confirmations. So it's like showing how it's working, how the system is working right now. And if the user now thinks the system is safer, uh, because they think they have the control of the system, and it's a feeling because like the blockchain is working, and that's it. Uh, but it's a feeling that it's good for the user and it has positive usage. For example, in terms of showing errors, there's a big problem in Web3 too about that, because usually brands don't describe what is happening in the errors or how you can solve it. For example, this one I think it was from Uniswap, and it's unexpected error. Please try again or contact support. And they didn't have support at that time, so like contact who? Uh, a lot of people tried to do an investigation on this one, and it was the support of the coin that they were trying to trade. So it was not the support of Uniswap, it was the support of the coin. So it doesn't explain the problem, it doesn't provide the solution, and it's not a positive experience. So we have, when you have an error, you won't have a like, oh yes, I'm happy because now there is an error on the system, right? But you can still have like a positive experience because okay, now I know the solution and I can change it and I can work towards it. And the same goes for the next one. It's like swap failed, cannot estimate gas, transaction may fail or may require manual gas limit, and then you have a bunch of letters and stuff that the like the user don't know what that means, right? So yes, they explain the problem. They can it cannot estimate the gas, and they cannot provide a solution. But because of all the letters and the big message, the user can't get the solution quite right. So it doesn't provide a positive experience. And like the objective of UX, like I said, it's not making the user happy, but it's providing a positive experience. So another example of this is like swap failed, unknown error, unsupported chain, and then you have like the solution, right? So now they are providing the solution. They are explaining the problem, but it's still not a positive experience because you are saying like swap failed, that's one error. Then unknown error, that's second error. Error, four errors. So it's like I have four errors on the message. That's not a happy message, right? So it's the same. It's for UX. And of course, the best way to solve this is not on the error message itself, but trying to prevent the error. So if the gas is too low, and like the app knows that maybe you won't get to uh, you won't get a successful transaction, then you can place a message like, yes, your transaction will likely fail. If it does, you will lose your network fee. So you're providing the message. If the user wants to swap anyway, that's on theirs, right? So they choose that. But if you aren't showing that, you are not providing a good user experience. And then even after that, they say it again, like, yes, your swap is likely to fail. Are you sure that you want to continue? Yes or no? Okay, yes, you will lose the assets or not, and that's it. You are still are giving the permission to the user to do their decisions, but you are also at the same time educating them about that. Because even if you have a button to say like learn more, you can learn more, and maybe you can go to a blog that is educating yourself about, oh yes, how gas limits works on blockchain or on trading. So yeah, the same goes well for wallet security. For example, this is for the Ledger Nano X, and I know that lately Ledger had some security problems, but one of the things that is good for for their latest wallet is that they show you will be sending this asset, and this is the amount of the cryptocurrency that you are sending that you will lose or that you will send, and they are like showing the status of the transaction. And even if you are trying to sign a smart contract, it will like take a look at the smart contract and say is the if there is a security risk or not, depending on external sites. So I think that's an improvement from UX. And those things are like little details, but if you sum it up, they make a real difference in the world space. That's what I think. Hope this helps.
Well, no, yeah, thank you. I think like you're absolutely right about small details and adding up and like making like a big difference. Again, as you said, like even the first one about like losing your tokens or your crypto if you don't know, right? And this is kind of like again brings up to what we said. For some reason, like the design is something like is not focused upon Web3 like at all. Not at all, but to a larger extent. And I'm not talking about like Binance right now, but like as you've shown, they had their problems with the design lately. But for a lot of new companies, and again, as we said, like they don't focus on the design, and design is where like people can easily drop out and disappear. Because when I'm working with, I don't want to say Web2 brands, but like the brands who are not, who are like traditional, right? Design is kind of one of the first. I think like a lot of companies even over focus on design and they forget about the product of it all because they want to be all flesh but no substance, which is like another problem which companies have. And that is not to say all traditional companies have amazing design, but design plays a more important role. And in Web3, it just like it's almost if it doesn't matter. And I have loads of websites like this, like from like websites of people who are leaders in the community of like crypto or like Web3, and I'm talking to them, especially as part of this podcast, and then I'm like checking out their like websites, and they're like the websites barely function from UX point of view, and I'm like, how, why don't you invest? it's expensive, but not that expensive. And especially today, Bitcoin jumped to $28,000 per Bitcoin. So you should have some cash to spare on your design work. And that is, I think, a big problem. And that is why I think what you're doing, like here today, coming, and what you're doing on LinkedIn, like sharing your information about design, is important. It's just important for more founders and like builders to hear about it and actually pay attention to the designs of their works and projects. Because one thing is I don't take them seriously and I don't want to work with them, which is also bad because they lose business. But another thing, if they have customers already and they lose all
Yeah,
their crypto because they just, or like not all customers, but like some would, because they just don't have like certain buttons and visual, signals in place.
yeah, and the thing is that a lot of people think that design is just about visuals, but no, it's about problem solving too, and trying to do prevention of that problems too. So yes, totally agree with you. But as you said, I think it's also a thing of awareness. So we have to talk much more about this, I think.
Definitely, definitely. Well, Maria, thank you for coming on the show today and talking to us about it. As I said, where can people find you, and where can you make people aware
Sure,
about the design problems and the work which you're doing?
sure. So you can search for me on LinkedIn. I'm Maria G. Salcedo. And you can also search my website. It's mgsalcedon.com. So those are good for me because I'm right now on LinkedIn. I'm like open to connect. So if you send me a connection request and maybe send a note like, oh yes, I see this podcast here. I will connect with you and you can chat with me. There's no problem about that. But yeah, it's as easy as that.
Cool, great. Well,
And thanks for having me here too, Ivan. I really enjoyed the discussion.
thank you, thank you. I did too. Maybe like sometime in the future you can come and talk a bit more about certain different design aspects. Definitely. Um, Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening and staying here with us. I hope you've received a lot of value from this podcast. Again, my mission statement with my podcast and the guests I ask to come is create applicable and actionable. That's my personal pet beef, I guess. Not really. I don't see it as a problem, but like I see like a lot of discussions in marketing and business space are very vague. Like they say the right things. It's not like they're lying or anything, but they're just like very highbrow concepts. So like you listen to them, you're like, okay, I'm on it. It's great. And then you switch off the podcast or the video, and it's like, well, like, but how does this apply to my business, like at all?
Yeah, like no substance. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say this. There is substance. It's just like, it's hard to relate because it's almost like too philosophical in nature. And then like, yeah, but my business isn't really philosophical. It's physical. It's here. I need to do something about it. And how? And like, you know, something which I also don't like lately. I read a lot about. You have to do storytelling in your design, in your like creatives, in your copy. I'm like, well, okay, but how? What is the storytelling I have to do? Obviously, just because I tell a story doesn't make it immediately super converting. There should be certain like elements which I implement, and that's like what I'm looking for. And that's like, again, as I'm saying, I have those questions. I'm sure, well, other people either have them or like have them subconsciously. But the point is like, here we go deep and we say like, yeah, you got to do storytelling, but how? And this is like why I bring like amazing people who I feel answer those questions sometimes more effectively than others, but like I'm trying. I'm trying to get those answers out.
No, it's nice. I mean, if you bring the good questions, then you will get answered. Hopefully, yeah, right? Depends on
Ah, podcasting, interviewing, it's also a skill, and like we're learning. But again, like I'm very proud of like people who come and them, and like I know because like well I listen to those podcasts because I'm part of them. But I know the information is there because then I go to my work and I apply it. And like I'm a small business, I have a small agency, which is like probably like micro agency, not even small because we're just like kind of reopening at the moment. But like I applied, so it works for me. So like I hope it works for our audience and listeners, and that is my goal. And again, like, that's why I also thank you for coming today again and telling us a bit more about like UX UI design, and hopefully more Web3 companies come to you, come to me, and ask, hey, help us with the design.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks for having me here too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah.